All right. Good evening, folks. We had been in executive session prior to this meeting, and we went to a recess. So we are back from our recess, and I'm going to call this regular meeting to order on April 3rd. April 3rd, 2018, Selectmen's Meeting. So I'm going to call the meeting to order and have a roll call.
Sue Licio, aye.
Warren Clark, aye.
And Cindy Kennedy. Yeah, present, yeah. And if everyone could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our meeting is being tape recorded and filmed by Hartley. And is there anyone else in the audience that's going to be recording the meeting? All right, so that's no one's mentioned that they're going to do that. And Chairman's additions and deletions, I have none. 2.1, discuss, vote to approve a donation account to be established under the control of the Council on Aging for the purpose of program enrichment. There's a couple words missing here. For the Townsend Senior Center. Do we have it here somewhere?
Jim, did you want to talk about it?
Yes. Madam Chair, a request has come in from citizens, some of whom are associated with Council on Aging, that have an interest in establishing an enrichment program fund to the benefit of the Council on Aging, and they want to do so in memory of Karen Canfield Moore's mom, who passed away recently. So in order to do that, they would need a vote of the Board of Selectmen to establish the mechanics of the fund. So the vote of the board, if it's your wish, would be to approve a donation account to be established under the control of the Council on Aging for the purpose of program enrichment for the Townsend Senior Center.
Do you need her name on this? Or?
This is how it came in, so if it needs to be noted by the accountant for that purpose, then she could do that.
But all the funds raised on this would benefit the Senior Center or the Council on Aging?
Correct.
The Senior Center, okay.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve a donation account be established under the control of the Council on Aging for the purpose of program enrichment for the Townsend Senior Center.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's passed. 2.2, review, comment, mandatory referral from the Zoning Board of Appeals for special permit regarding 205 Main Street. Do you have anything on that?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that the board thank the zoning board for the referral and that we have no comment.
Second.
Okay, so this requires special permit. Okay. Just interesting to have another, but...
Unless we have a comment.
No, I'm just looking to see if I do. But the ZBA has probably got lots of questions on this one anyway. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll do that. Next we have review, approve road opening permit for Unitil for 5 locations, 393 Main, 14 Ash, 2 Stearns, 318 Main, 6 Bow Street, all to abandoned gas service.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve a road opening permits for Unitil for the following locations: 393 Main Street, 14 Ash Street, 2 Stearns Ave, 318 Main Street, and 6 Bow Street, all for abandoned gas service.
Madam Chairman, just a point of order. Could we add to that Sue's motion, but just contingent upon receival of all fees? If that's all right.
Okay.
Is that all right, you, Sue?
Sure, contingent upon all fees being received.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is 2.4, review approve change order number 2 in the amount of $4,253 for the West Townsend Fire Station.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't see the fire chief, so I'll speak to the issue. It's pretty clearly defined in your packets. The change order, an amount of $4,523, which is covered within the contingency for the project, is for the purpose of changing out the gas heater from what was originally designed to a more appropriate unit. That is for a fee of $3,918. And in a continued effort to match the architecture and building color of the West Townsend Village, the committee has agreed the window frames need to be black on the outside and white on the inside. The dual color, there's an additional charge of $605. So if it's the pleasure of the board, a motion to approve the change order as presented in the amount of $4,523.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve change order number 2 in the amount of $4,253 for the West Townsend Fire Station.
Second.
What color is the fire station going to be?
Wait.
White with black trim. And I'm curious about how they ended up with the wrong design for the gas heater.
I can ask the chief to submit a memo on that.
Yeah, I'd like to. How that happened, because that's the second one that's kind of strange. Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Discuss, review, approve the fiscal year 19 capital plan.
Madam Chair, the Capital Plan Committee has voted and submitted the capital plan for fiscal 19 in accordance with the bylaw. You should have a copy in your packets of the plan as submitted, and it will show that for capital stabilization account, which is the pure capital plan account, you have two items. One is a brush mower sidewalk plow, and that is a $100,000 figure. And then joint police and fire radio equipment for $149,820. So the total under capital stabilization is $249,820. And there is currently a little in excess of $300,000 in the capital stabilization account, so that is covered. You'll next see in the next column, other funding sources. These are capital items that the plan requires to be shown in the capital plan, even though they're being funded from other funding sources. First, you'll see replace Medic 1. The chief came before you and spoke about that as part of his budget, and that is $66,360 from ambulance receipts. Next, you'll see the road paving maintenance, which is a $200,000 article request. Next, you'll see police vehicles, $65,000. It's listed as tax levy because that is budgeted within the police department budget. Next, you'll see mobile data terminals in the amount of $25,000, also budgeted under tax levy. Next, you'll see taser replacement, $6,512, also under tax levy. And the last grouping you'll see are water department projects. One is a borrowing of $1 million for the water main replacement project, approximately 3,000 feet from 512 Main Street to Wheeler Road, approximately 300,000 feet on New Fitchburg Road. That would be borrowed with the debt service to be paid by water enterprise funds. Next, you'll see Meadow Road main replacement for $110,000, and that would be also paid for by water enterprise funds. Next is backup generator for the main office at 540 Main Street, $30,000, water enterprise funds. And purchase a four-wheel drive one-ton dump truck, $50,000, and that too would be water enterprise. And lastly is the funding for the bridge project, which is $40,099.52, also from water enterprise. So the total for the plan is the combination of those two sums for a total of $2,109,971.52.
A question, please. So out of capital stabilization is the 249,
Correct.
but then we have an additional article?
Those would be a number of standalone articles or items that would be contained within the operating budget. So for instance, the replacing Medic 1, Forestry 1 would need to be standalone articles. The brush mower, sidewalk plow in the capital article. The water borrowing needs to be a separate article because...
I'm looking at the 200,000 for the 28 loader, the road paving maintenance.
Yes.
So capital is suggesting that we do that this year? Am I right in seeing that?
That's how I'm reading it. And Cindy is the member.
Well, I thought that we were, that was going, if that was going to, we're fine with that, because that was part of the initial conversation with putting that on as a regular article.
Okay, on a yearly basis is what you mean?
Right, because it's
to have
in the
that.
5-year, 200,000 each year. If that's what the town wants to do, then that was okay.
Okay.
It's not,
And that's in addition to the...
yes, just as far as the capital stabilization account, the original, in fact, in the letter to the board from the capital committee, the original conversation was to allow 200,000, flat 200,000, to recommend to the capital committee to limit our recommendation to 200,000. And just the way that the items that were presented, we saw the joint police, well, based on the scoring as well, but we couldn't cut the radios in half, and the brush mower is being held together by duct tape. So that was coming up to 249,000, so we put in the letter to recommend that we fund the 249 for the items that would come out of capital stabilization at this time.
And the 200,000 for the road paving maintenance is an article, because I saw that just didn't have the number
That would be up
plugged
to,
in.
yes.
And that's from raise and appropriate?
Right now, it would be other available funds. So we have articles that exist on the books that the town accountant is working to determine whether, this is something we talked about, Sue, actually, you and I, about closing out existing articles that are sitting on the books when the project's been done, so we don't leave money just hanging out there. The assessors have identified $33,700, I believe, in overlay surplus. That becomes an available fund, so looking to fund it from available funds.
So free cash, basically?
If
Or
it
what will be free cash?
Would be free cash next year down the pipe, correct?
Okay, so cleaning up some of the unspent
Prior authorization.
prior authorizations.
Correct.
Do we usually do that at this annual town meeting or at the fall?
I don't see that it's been done in the last several years, so I don't know.
I could swear that we wait until the fall usually to do that.
A lot of these articles go back 5 years. So again, I've been coming on 2.5 years and I've not seen it done yet, so I don't know that it's at a standard.
Okay, do we,
Would you prefer to put it into the fall?
I'm almost thinking it might be better in the fall, after we know what free cash is.
Because what I've experienced so far is in the fall, when we know what free cash is, at the next available special, we put an amount of money from free cash into cap stabilization. This past special, we put the 250 in. So this is
Which
kind of...
was an increase because it used to be
Usually
two.
Right. This falls outside of that. I mean, if we let them continue to sit, they would just be funds that are tied up. If we closed them and did nothing, they would revert to free cash. So we would likely see, them, if we close them at the annual and don't reauthorize, we would then see them as free cash in the fall.
That's my point.
So it's
That's my point.
better.
It defaults to free cash anyway.
but if we take care of it now, then it's available to us
So would you,
sooner.
You get the paving season if you do it this way.
We
versus
can't pave
waiting till
in
the fall.
November and December and January.
technically you can still, but, yeah,
If you
okay.
want to do pothole repair after that.
Technically, it can't.
You can't. they can't get the
Most towns have a November 15th stop, and they plan to start shutting down. You don't get the same
Yeah, you
quorum.
can't
So
get
that would be a truthful statement.
paving materials.
So, okay, thank you for explaining that.
Okay, so, do we have a motion to approve the fiscal year 19 capital plan?
Move that the board approve the fiscal year 2019 capital plan.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that unanimous, Madam Chairman?
Yes. Point 6, discuss, review, approve fiscal year 19 budgets.
Madam Chair, you should, if you brought your budget books, you have the line item detail. If not, you have the omnibus version in the warrant that's contained within your packet. So we can work off of either of those documents, whatever is your preference.
The one that's in the packet is not the line item.
Correct, it's just the omnibus.
If you don't mind, I just have a couple of things, because we went over all of this.
Yep.
But there's only a couple things that I would not agree with, or that I have questions on, and it refers more to the line items.
Absolutely.
So may I?
Sure, what are they?
The first is something that we talked about last time, and that was the human resources position, the new position.
Correct.
Realizing that it's only a 20-hour position, and it's $21,000, I really keep thinking about this, and I still feel like this isn't the right time for it, that I'd rather see that come before us in the fall, and give you the opportunity of putting together what's the long-term plan in terms of HR.
On that point, so I did get a note slid to me that I didn't realize in time to say it, but a member of the FinCom was in the audience last meeting, and the note was suggesting looking at a private firm to do consulting.
I think that's a wonderful
for
suggestion,
HR.
too.
So I know that Barb Kearney, the treasurer collector, where a good bit of the human resource function currently lives, did reach out to a couple companies and is anticipating some information within the next couple days here. So
Okay.
between now and the next meeting, I should have that information for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer not to create a position for a person, and then potentially it's not really where we want to end up going. You know, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. So if you want to investigate that suggestion, that'd be fine with me too. I still just don't feel like it belongs in here. And again, I am concerned about the IT stuff. That is my segue into the IT stuff. To me, it's an absolute priority to make sure that we straighten out all of the system stuff, and that we have the things in place that we need, a good secure network, PCs that back up to the network everywhere.
Right.
Those kinds of things. We can't afford, in this day and age, we can't afford not to have all of that. It'd be great if that grant covers it, but I am concerned that the grant may not cover everything. I've worked in IT long enough to know that the estimates that you sometimes get at the beginning, when you start really getting in and have exact requirements, there's always things that you missed the first time through. So I'm just trying to save some money while we can. And I'd prefer to hold off on that expenditure. The other question that I had has to do with the access, the public access, and what we're doing with that, because I really didn't understand how that was budgeted in here and what it covered. So if you could explain that, that'd be wonderful.
Certainly. What's covered in this budget now is basically what we're doing currently. Currently, we have Hartley on payroll as a town employee doing all of our cable studio work. We have that in the MIS, Management Information Systems budget. The funding is broken. When you look at the line item version of the budget, you'll see that it's broken out in that budget between what is MIS and what is PEG access, or Public Educational Governmental Access, which is Hartley's function. We currently are working through special counsel toward establishing the nonprofit Cable Access Corporation. When that happens, the very next available special town meeting, there would be a motion to strip those funds from the IT budget and allow them then to be transferred over into the new nonprofit corporation. So until we have that corporation, we've got no other way to do it and continue to function but for the way we've got it structured.
And do we still get money from cable?
We do.
How much do we get?
Yep, the franchise agreement that the board negotiated was a little before I got here, but I think we still have 8 years on the 10, or maybe 7 on the 10. 1% of all of the cable bills in the town of Townsend, everything from your basic to your pay-per-views, comes to the town on a quarterly basis. So we see...
Is that in our revenue projections?
It is. We see roughly $200,000 in revenue. And it will show in your revenue projections on other available funds. There'll be a PEG access line that'll show you that amount coming in.
And we're allowed to spend that on anything that we see fit? It actually...
No, it's limited to things that are specific to PEG access. So it'd be those funds that we're programming to cover Hartley's salary, equipment needs, things that are specific to PEG access.
Thank you for that segue. Equipment needs.
I felt you were leading me somewhere.
Equipment needs. Do we have plans to upgrade our equipment?
This equipment, the PEG, yes, we do.
Okay. In fiscal 19?
Perhaps much to Hartley's chagrin, but yeah, we'd be looking to move away from the fact that we're still dealing in tape versus digital recording format. Some of the work that Hartley does at the school is done digitally. Stuff we're working on here is still an earlier generation. But yes, the plan would be to have this room outfitted with fixed cameras that would be able to be mounted on the rear walls, covering the board, mounted in these corners to cover the audience, that could be controlled by the technician. To ideally have a studio. We've had some discussion about the possibility of the Hart Library, a portion of the library, the basement particularly, becoming archive storage for our archival needs, and the main floor becoming in part cable studio. So we would have the ability to have additional meetings there with cable access and recording capability, which we don't have now. We have this area. And then also studios, so if there's ever we get to the point of having production where it's a night with the selectmen or the school committee or the police chief, you sit in the studio and you have a call-in program like some towns do. We would have studio space that would come under the nonprofit corporation. But the plan is to definitely upgrade the equipment we're working off of.
And I have complete faith in Hartley's ability to take on whatever new stuff we give him. But I just wanted to make sure that we were looking at upgrading
Absolutely.
things too. In terms of the Hart Library, how would that be funded? Through PEG?
Well, right now we have, I updated you at a recent meeting, I think it was probably a month or so ago, shortly after Senator Tran was sworn in. He called on a Monday morning saying that there was a capital bond bill that was being authorized, and he had 4 hours window for us to try to turn a project around. So Mark Mercurio from Facilities and I sat down, consulted with Rich Hanks, the building commissioner, to get an idea of what a scope of a project would be to do the mechanical work on that building. So we're talking heat, electric, lighting, windows, not changing them out because they're historically appropriate, but doing like we did apparently here in this building where there are insert storm windows on the old original windows. Not aesthetics and cosmetics, but basically the outdoor structure, the interior structure, and then the outdoor work in terms of having handicapped access. Wouldn't be looking to to affect the facade of the building out front, but off of the back of the building, ramp that would go up to the middle window on the back. That window would be converted to a handicap accessible door, so you'd have access to that floor, changing the facade of the front of the building. Wouldn't need handicap access to the basement because it would not be public space. It would just be archival space. So the idea would be, if that grant does come through, be able to do that work through that. The interior then is going to be left to a combination of things. If there is half of it that the board decides they want to have as PEG access, we have PEG access funds. If there's another, there are a couple of other uses I think you've probably heard kicked around town, some folks that are looking for space in the building, so there are other grant opportunities that would come up if we were doing something that was educational and cultural, for instance. I know there's a local concern that has an interest in that.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for my questions.
Okay. I want to go back to the HR assistant. When you were talking about the consultant, is that to determine, have a consultant do the work, or a consultant to review what it is we need? And
Consultant to do the work. This would be somebody, I think what Barb has scoped out, I think, 4 hours a week on-site, and then unlimited is the wrong, because nothing is unlimited, but basically unlimited phone and internet support. So somebody on site to do things once a week, and then everything else handled electronically.
Would this be an individual or a company?
It would be a company, and they would assign one person, so we had the same person that was familiar with everything that was going on. They didn't rotate somebody new each week.
And this would be in addition to the company that we already have that we consult with to do our positions?
Oh, the HRS?
Yeah, HRS is basically, yeah, they're just
Okay.
they're a contractor that comes in on a spot basis if there's a need to reevaluate the comp and class plan. So they're not really somebody that is an ongoing consultant.
Okay. Would there be a difference between what you had in your, I know that we're still in a work in progress on this, but with having a consultant, does that involve, could that involve more workload than what you might have perceived that we would have had for having the budgeted position?
I'm not following.
Would they be doing more? If we're going to hire a consultant?
I judge they'd be doing less.
Less.
I judge they'd be doing less. If we had the benefit of a part-time staff person, I judge that they would be able to physically accomplish more, handle more of the load. I mean, there's some relativity to that, because obviously day one with a consultant, they're up to speed. You know, they are trained in that, they know. So if we were hiring somebody cold and they had HR experience but not in municipalities, there may be a period of time that it takes to ramp up for them. But I would judge an on-staff person would have a greater production than would the consultant.
Okay. So what we're looking at now is looking at the consultant. Are we still discussing having this on the budget? Or would you want to?
My preference is to keep it in the budget.
Okay.
I heard from Sue that she was going to speak that it wasn't the right time for it. I did get the finance committee member give me the note about looking about. So just to be most prepared, I wanted to be traveling down both paths at the same time.
Okay. All right.
Having said that, if it was the vote of the board this evening to remove it from the budget as a position, I would then be recommending that an amount be budgeted in the budget to hire a consultant. Because obviously if now's not the time, then it should be now's not the time and we pull the money out and it sits. If it's now's not the time to bring a body, but we should entertain a consultant, there's a fee that's associated with the consultant, so we shouldn't just pull the money out. We should just put it into the expense line someplace. So either way, it's either now's not a good time, or it should be something between either a staff person or a consultant.
I'd rather wait until the fall.
But you've already identified the need, that you want somebody, that's a need that we have now.
Barb, the treasurer collector, Barb Tierney, began the conversation. She feels very, very strongly that this is a need now. I support that position. I'm not sold that it needs to necessarily be upstairs in the Selectman TA's office versus down in the treasurer collector's office in terms of the physical location, but right now both offices handle HR in one fashion or another. It's bifurcated.
It's piecemeal at this point.
So do I think that we would be better served by having a consultant than nothing? Yes, but I think we'd be best served by having the part-time position.
I'm thinking in a part-time position, we'd have more supervisory control over what the other duties that's assigned, what they would actually be doing. And it sounds like we'd be able to hire them for July 1st if we put them on, if we kept it on the budget. And we're talking about the same money. Would you want more money?
I don't expect the consultant would be as much money. We would be, again, as Barb Scopie,
Well, you don't
I
have
believe.
benefits or anything either.
Well, I don't know that I had it plugged at, does it say 20?
21?
21 hours? I don't think so.
Oh, no, you said 20 hours at $21,245.
Yeah, I actually would be looking at putting that in at 19.
I thought that was
That
what
was
you
on the
said in
original.
conversation.
Yeah, on the original it's 19, so it would not be benefited.
Okay.
Well, I like actually keeping it the way you originally asked for it, the assistant. I like the employee idea better at this point. It gives us more, and then we'd have to hire somebody, preferably, that it would not be an entry-level position.
There would be a process.
Right.
If the board votes to put it forward, and if it gets funded at town meeting, I would then come back to you with a job description that would either be one that has already been classified and rated, or something that looks different that you would then go through your classification policy on. But we're not going to go through the gymnastics of that if it's not something that's going to happen either now, or if it's something that is not going to happen because a consultant is preferred by the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I think so far that's all I have. Do you have a presentation you want to?
No, we've done the
Okay.
the dog and pony show on it. Later in my report, there's discussion about scheduling the public hearing, which is yet to occur, and that would be a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. And I'd be looking to see if you had the ability to do that next Tuesday evening. The Finance Committee has concurred that they're available for that, which is next Tuesday, the 10th.
But you wanted a vote from us tonight on this, or?
Ideally, I'd like to be able to...
So I thought last year it was done concurrently with the Finance Committee. Everybody voted on each department.
I don't think so, no. God knows I don't remember what I had for
voting.
lunch, so I could be mistaken, but I don't recall it that way. I think there was a joint meeting where there was discussion. I think in each meeting with each department, last year we had a little more participation with members of the Finance Committee on each individual budget, where there was a lot of back and forth between the two boards. But the public hearing was, the budget was already finalized and voted, and it was being publicly presented.
Gordy, did you have any
I did.
comment?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Sorry, I did not mean to.
No, actually, I think it was beneficial this time to have you go before me, so I could take what you and Sue had and Jim.
Okay.
So my things will be brief here. On the, about the human resources, I think I articulated last time we met my strong support for that position. And after knowledge given to me, members of the board earlier today, I think that we'd be negligent if we don't strongly support this at this time. So I'm willing to take a vote to support this as recommended by the town administrator. That's my view. Thank you.
Did you want to vote, or did you want us to vote on the budget as a whole, or we're just going to talk about?
Well, right now, you took up the budget at your meeting last week, and the areas that had been identified as areas of question and concern were addressed. The one thing I think was left hanging out to be resolved was this issue. So if the board has a consensus on how to handle this issue, and that's the only one that's remaining, then everything else de facto has already met your
That's what I thought.
met your approval. So just a
Madam Chair, just one more thought on the HR position, because I'm concerned that I'm not making myself clear. I believe that that's a necessary position. My concern is that it feels kind of rushed. I'd rather give our town administrator and our treasurer collector time to put together a comprehensive, where are we going to go with this? And especially from a training and expertise perspective, I can see an advantage to having a plan where first you bring in a consultant that has the expertise, and that perhaps at the same time we can use to set up some policies and procedures in line with HR policy. Because while you have the expert here, you might as well take advantage of that. And then if you want to think about transitioning that into something that's more permanent and established, then I would be willing to entertain that, and I would think that the timeline of the fall might make sense to work that out. You get paid more than I do, so I'll let you do it. But I mean, those are my thoughts. And just to be clear, I feel so strongly about this that even if the board as a whole votes to approve this, I will recommend an amendment on town floor to reduce it by that amount. So I would prefer to just do that now as a board, and say, we'll wait till the fall for that. But I just want to let you know that that's where I'm coming from.
Perhaps as a compromise that everybody would feel comfortable with. If we'd be looking at the fall, and we took 21,000, call it 20 for easy math, as the ask for the position, and cut $5,000 off of that, and looked at a three-quarter position, not beginning until the fall, and we used the first quarter and that same $5,000 to bring a consultant on to actually scope out the policies, get them in place, get it set up, scope out, work with us on the job description. It may be that it's the same one we've already got classified, it may be something different. But get that work done and front-loaded while we have the benefit of them, and do a more meaningful transition and recruitment with a target of having somebody come in the fall. It's the same money, but I think we're getting the benefit of both.
I'd be okay with that.
I think we're getting the benefit of both.
I'd be okay with that.
Well, that'll bring somebody in right away.
Yeah, then we would have the benefit of a consultant on hand for the first quarter, and then we would have a transition to a part-time.
So we're going to have it budgeted so that we are hiring an HR assistant in September.
Right. Well, what I would recommend, if that's the wish of the board, and I too think that that's a good compromise, would be that the budget be revised then to take 5 of that 20, or 5,250, and put it down in the expense line, because I wouldn't be able to hire that consultant contract as a salary line. So basically it's the same money, but break a quarter of it down to the expense line.
So get a consultant for a $5,000 or $5,000
or less. I mean, just basically the first quarter is consultant.
Around $5,000 worth of work.
Correct.
To get things kicked off, get the classification done,
Right.
Rather than trying to...
Roll some HR policies in that are current, off the street.
And it would give you time to figure out, where's this person going to sit, how's it work better?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay, to have both in there.
Yeah.
So around 15,000, round numbers,
Yeah, just
15,000 in the
three-quarters of
salary
it up and
line,
quarter
and
down.
5,000 in the...
Yep.
Okay.
So you'd be moving this money around a little bit?
I would revise the budget, if that's your vote. Basically, it's the same bottom line, but it's just putting a quarter of it in the expense.
Do we have a motion to
That's fine.
approve that?
Well, we can just vote on the whole budget, right?
Well, we already...
With that.
Right.
Okay.
So I move that the board approve the budget as presented with the modifications that we just talked about for HR, moving some of the money into an expense line.
Madam Chairman, I didn't have an input here.
Okay. Go ahead.
Because
You
it's
can have
called
input after the
Okay,
motion.
go ahead.
All right, well, I'm just letting
All
her
right,
know
all right.
that. So, second.
Okay. Discussion.
Yes. I can't stress enough that after knowledge gained and knowledge from the past here of the terrible exposure and lack of acceptable standards, that we need this. But if that's the method that you and Mr. Kryler, you two and Mr. Kryler want to go forward with, I will support that. But for the record...
I think we get coverage.
All right.
Sufficient coverage.
For the record, I want to be put on the record that we are, many of our problems, which I can't discuss here, are caused by our lack of human resources positions, all right? So I would go along with the two board members and Mr. Quayle, all right?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay. 2.7, discuss, review, approve annual and special town meeting warrant.
Madam Chair and members of the board, you have in your packet a copy of the draft warrant, and we've gone over the warrant once. There are a couple things that are a little different from last week when we went over it, the majority of which is just it's been fine-tuned and finalized. There were a couple of articles that just had the concept included, but now have the entire article. So, for the benefit of those watching tonight and those in the audience, the special town meeting is contemplated to just be 3 articles. The first will likely not be necessary, but between now and the town meeting, if something is discovered that is a prior year bill, it's safest to have the Article 1 prior fiscal year bill article. Article 2 would be the traditional snow and ice deficit. So that would cover any fiscal 18 snow and ice deficit. Article 3, the Water Department submitted an article for the special town meeting to purchase and implement a new utility billing software for the Water Department. There's been some communication between a member of the Finance Committee and the Water Department, and then I circled back around to make certain I understood correctly. It appears the intention is not to do this immediately, but to pursue it within the fiscal year. So there had been some thought that it might not be a necessary article for right now, but it's been confirmed by Mr. Rafuse that the Water Commission would like this to be done and funded now out of water enterprise funds to be on hand for this fiscal year when they're ready to make that move. You then don't see the annual beginning until you get to page 4. On page 4 you have the usual and customary Article 1, which is appointing all town officers unless provisions are made by Mass General Law, Charter, or other vote. And Article 2, here are any reports, boards, committees, or commissions. Article 3, other usual and customary, is the annual appointment of the James H. Tucker Fund in accordance with the bequest. That's for West Townsend residents to serve as caretakers for curbing gravestones and monuments in West Townsend. Next is Article 4, also usual and customary. There's one new added this year, but this is usual and customary revolving fund articles. These are requests by departments for the ability to have a separate fund set up for a specific purpose into which they can deposit receipts and make expenditures. The best example I give is if there's an automobile accident and there's a gas spill and the fire department responds and they use some of their materials to contain the gas spill. They're able to receive funds back from the insurance company, from the automobile accident, and put those funds into the revolving fund and purchase new supplies out of the revolving fund without having to wait for a special town meeting to get a supplemental appropriation. So you'll see that there's one that has been a standard for recycling with the Board of Health. The revenue source is the collection of recyclables. The use of the funds is operating costs associated with recycling. The spending limits. This doesn't mean these amounts are appropriated in any fashion. It means that at no time can this fund exceed these dollar values. Next is recreation.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Just overall, when we see the spending limits, is there money already in these?
Some of them do have money already, and it's a matter of timing because they do revolve. So it could be on any given moment that they have expended them completely and money won't be back into the revolving fund until the next receipt is received. So at the end of the year, there is an accounting of what is available in each revolving fund, but it is subject to change depending on the ins and outs during the year.
Did we get a report of that?
I know one is available. I get one, so.
Could we get one, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just, before I look at amounts here, I'm just wondering how they're doing on...
Well, this is just what this article does is authorize us to have the revolving
Right.
accounts. And this is the money that just will move, and some of these have larger, like inspectional services, well, that was the high school.
Correct.
75,000 that they needed to have. That's
The ability to have in there,
that they
right.
could have up to 75,000 in there, in the event that, they haven't spent it on anything.
I understand
Some of them are
that, but
5.
I don't know when they were authorized to have X amount of dollars for last year. See, they're not on the expense reports that we get. That's why I'm asking for
Gotcha.
it. That's all. Thank you.
So then you'd see recreation programs, you'd see facilities maintenance, cemetery, fire alarm, animal control, animal care, inspectional services, fire EMS, police, conservation, and fire EMS. The 2 fire EMS, one is fees from community events or fire watch, and the other is hazardous materials supplies reimbursement. The last fire EMS hazardous materials is the new one being recommended this year by the fire chief. Next page, we get into the operating budget, which again, just to make certain everybody's following along, the way the article reads in the warrant is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds is an asterisk. You look at the asterisk and you'll see the funds are listed. Those are the other available funds. So you'd see Comcast Government Access for operating costs of the MIS department, Title V, West Townsend Reading Room, ambulance receipts reserved, recreation receipts, and water enterprise, and the specific amounts associated. So those, by DOR regulation, have to be called out as specific other funding sources for the operating budget. This chart also exists in the detailed spreadsheets that you've received as a part of the budget book as other available funds. The warrant this year, I've taken the additional step of putting what you see next, which is description. So indented at each article point, there'll be the word description, and then there'll be a brief description of the meaning of the article to try to inform people in advance of the meeting. So if they have the ability to read it the week before a town meeting and recognize that they either understand it or recognize that they have a question about it, it gives them an opportunity to seek some answers before the meeting. So in this one it reads, this is usual and customary town budget for the next fiscal year, fiscal 19, which begins on July 1st, 2018. As has been customary, you'll be voting on functional segments. And then there's a chart, functional segments, general government, $1,559,881. Public safety, and so on, it goes down. Public safety, education, streets and highways, solid waste, human services, culture and recreation, debt service, insurances, and ultimately the grand total. When you look at the next lines, it says the totals for each functional segment as shown above also appear in the black shaded lines with asterisks in the budget shown below. So the budget that shows over the next several pages is the personnel and expense, or salary and expense by budget. So you'll see Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, Accounting, Assessors, and so on. That shows the salary and expense lines. There's a column that shows notes on the far right. There's a column that will show the dollar differential and the percentage differential from last year to this year's recommendation. And it then reads further on the note, a more detailed line item budget is available in the budget handout in your town meeting informational packet. That document is online now. It has been for a couple of weeks. There will be an amendment being made to it, obviously based on this earlier vote tonight on the HR, so I'll have that pulled down tonight, make the edit, and put it back up. But the detailed line item budget, Sue has hers with her that, folks may have seen that she was flipping through the pages. It's down to office supplies and that level of detail. So that'll be as part of the budget packet, and it's available online for people's review now. You then get through that number of pages.
Will that be available in print for people to
Absolutely.
pick up?
Yep, we're going to have a good stack of the full budget book as well.
I don't mean just that night. Would it be available?
Oh, absolutely.
Prior?
Yep, once it's voted and the warrant is done, the budget is done and voted in place, we'll have the books made up. They'll be available at the clerk's office. Our office here, we'll have some over at the library as well, so people have the ability to get them in a number of locations, and obviously they're always available online if people want to see them.
Is this what it's going to look like when people in the handout? Is this a copy of?
This is what will appear on the warrant. The handout,
I mean.
right,
Okay.
the handout, yeah, this will be the warrant that everybody gets, but the handout is going to be that full book.
Right.
It has everything.
I'm just not, I hate to
Yeah.
be a pain, but just thinking of, that, I would say that most people are somewhere between this and this, as far as what they're going to really care about when they're sitting in the chair, trying to keep up.
Right.
And they can't study every line while they're trying to keep up with the movement. But this, I mean,
Too small.
yeah, and what I'm thinking is, if this can go landscape and increase the font a little bit.
Sure.
And make it so that some of this is easier for us.
This is
folks
really
to-
readable. This.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good, but as far as this handout, is going to satisfy a lot of people.
But
If
you've
they're
got
not
the
gonna go
same
to
thing in here too, John. I mean, the first part is it is similar to that. This is the one with,
The omnibus, yeah.
okay? And then it has, the totals.
Right.
So, I mean...
That is the same document, it's just that's on legal paper.
Right, so, I mean, if you're going to produce something like this, they're going to have both in the same place and whatever they're comfortable with.
Should we not roll it into the warrant then, because it ends up in smaller print?
I like having, like, this is,
This is nice and big.
I know it is, but I'm just thinking that if we have just the basic budget in the warrant, which is going to satisfy, I would say, at least half the people.
But try to turn
I'm
it
happy with
landscape.
this, just to make this more manageable than somebody having to figure out, what page am I on in here?
Right.
That this is just the basic budget, this is really what we're going to go, we're not going to go through every line.
Right.
When we're going to go through this. This is how we're going to follow, and people are trying to follow along.
And end of the
But I
day-
just, like, it's
Yep, end of the day, the charter
just to
says
make it
in
a little more
the
easily
form that
read
the
by
board,
people, those of us that need new glasses.
the form that the board requires. So whatever your pleasure is on it, I'll,
But this, just in the same 8.5 by 11, the
Yep.
handout, just so that it's a little bit easier to read for those that aren't going to study that.
I don't mean to study it, but if you
You can use
have-
whatever you want.
This is just a suggestion. If you have all of the articles, minus the line item budget, the actual
the
budget,
omnibus budget, right?
okay? And instead, when you get to that article, everybody goes to this. They can choose to look at
The omnibus
the
or the detail.
omnibus, which is just like that, and vote on the highlighted ones, or if they prefer to look at this, they have that. So that everybody's looking at this
So
packet.
we can say page X of the...
Exactly. Okay? So that you
I just don't want to not include something in the warrant and then have people
I'm
be upset
concerned
by it.
that somebody are going to be, I mean, I know from years and years of participating and watching town meeting, that it takes nothing. A slight change can be very confusing and can lead to a lot of questions that aren't certain, that if we've got the warrant and the budget's part of the warrant, I mean, I like this, this is fine for people that want to have that detail in front of them, but in the warrant themselves, some people are very happy, some people aren't coming for this.
Right.
They're really not coming for this, they're just going to go along and approve it. And other people have different articles that are important to them. But having this section, just having it easily, just a reference for people to read, just to be readable, that's all.
No, I understand.
It just, if we landscape and then just a bigger font, and then for anybody that wants, everybody might not take one of those even. But if they don't take that, and then they find it themselves at their seat, and then we're going to start talking about the budget, then we're going to have to take a recess so everybody can go back and get the budget book.
Gotcha.
And that's just make it as easy as possible for people.
If I'm making this landscape inside the warrant, is there value in removing 17's column and having 18 and 19? That'll give me more room to be able to make it bigger by a column, so it's more readable?
Yeah.
Because 17, and in some cases 16, are available in the bigger book.
Unfortunately, this doesn't have the titles copied on each, but
Yeah, I've got that. I wrestled with it in the warrant the other day. It's
Yeah,
driving me
that's
nuts.
okay. But, yeah, this starts with 17. I mean, I just think that this is sufficient. I think it's a
That
really
we
great
should have one
packet.
document then.
And that's what I'm saying.
No,
Have
no, I
this.
mean, the warrant should be attached to that, one book, rather than,
You mean put pages on top that are
if
for the
you want to
regular
have,
article?
I just want to make it easier for somebody to know how many different booklets do people have to pick up when they go to sit at their seats. If they're going to have the warrant, and which they're accustomed to, and then budget's not in it, we'll be having a recess, so which happened last year. Everybody had to get up and go
Yeah,
to
that
the back of the room to pick things up that they didn't know they
I
were
thought
supposed to
that's
pick
why you
up.
did this, so they'd have everything.
Correct. I mean, that was available last year in the same exact form that you see there. The charting up front, some of the graphics are a little different, but the line item budget was available in that document last year. It wasn't available in the warrant, and that was one of the concerns that we heard. This is trying to cover both bases. I mean, that book is going to change one more time because the moderator is working on a document that I provided him a draft of a document called the Citizen's Guide to Town Meeting. And it's basically kind of, the basics of, what's a motion, what's the order of motions, what's a moderator do, who are the people sitting on the stage, type of things. For those that are coming to the town meeting for the first time, or, come regularly but are always a little bit shy about how to work within that environment. So I fully anticipate that document getting rolled into the back of that book as well. So while I'm at it, if it's the board's pleasure, I can roll the warrant, once approved, into that. And then there is one book that has the warrant up front, then the budget in both, the omnibus versus the line
And all
item.
you have to do is refer them to page number whatever to discuss the...
Right.
If that will, if we can move on to another part of this conversation to get this done, one book is much easier for the people that are coming to town meeting. If they pick up the warrant and there's no budget in there, they're not going to realize that right away.
That's true.
One document, one book, everything in one book.
The one concern I have about that is there are going to be people that aren't going to want that whole book. And at what point are we
Which is why I wanted...
putting good money after bad by creating...
I mean, okay.
500 copies
We're
of
going to spend a
that.
bloody fortune printing all these, too.
Whatever your pleasure.
Your flashlight's on.
I'm,
My preference, like I stated in the beginning, is the only comment I had, is to make the budget I want normally, the budget's in the warrant.
Okay.
I've never seen it not in the warrant. If we take it out of the warrant, it's going to confuse people. This is just hard to read,
Got it.
physically hard to read. Not that there's nothing wrong with it, it's just small print, and my only point was to make it so that it's easier to read, not to discuss which is better, this or that.
Okay.
That's all. My only request was to make this readable.
So you're both going to get what you're asking for then? You're going to see the warrant containing that document, but landscaped, easier to read, and it's already going to exist in the regular budget.
There you go. Which it already is. Thank you.
That moves you straight through to page 15. Page 15, you'll see Article 6, which is about fixed salaries, compensation of elected officials. This is something that's required specifically for the town clerk's position, because town clerk is an elected position, and legally you have to set the salary. It's already been appropriated in the budget. This is really kind of a pro forma, but it is required by the law. Description, this article is legally required. The next article, Article 7, is the fiscal 19 Water Enterprise Department budget. And this is where you'll see the total water department budget, and there'll be a breakdown of the amounts, the total amount to be raised, and the portion of which that total amount goes to fund water department expenses within the general operating budget. And the description is this article is to fund the annual operating budget for the water department, including intermunicipal expenses carried in the general fund budget. Next, you'll see the capital plan. budget. We talked about that earlier. Next page, Article 9, you'll see something that is going to require some discussion. The purpose of funding the fiscal 19 roadway pavement management plan. Parenthetical note, subject to debt exclusion or take any action in relation thereto. This has been an article that is a bit of an orphan. You'll notice that under submitted by, there's a question mark, because I've heard people on both the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom speak to this issue, sometimes in support, sometimes in opposition, but it's never been definitively nailed down as to whether it's going to be an article or an article now, or an article in the fall, or not an article at all. So this has been sitting in the folder, and I wanted to keep it alive until it's dead. So whatever, this is your warrant. A debt exclusion can only make it to the warrant if it's voted by the Select Board. So it's really your call.
Well, I think that depends on how much money we're talking about.
The existing plan, the roadway pavement management plan
60?
from 2015, I think the first phase was $3 million to do.
Oh, but that was to execute on the plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, and that's what, from the Finance Committee, one member in particular was feeling very passionately about actual execution and pavement on the earth versus
So I have
planning.
a question on that.
Yes.
Were we to do that, that we would be using a plan that was created several years ago.
Correct.
Somehow,
Needs to be updated.
it needs to be updated, and
Correct.
updating that plan is going to cost us some money,
Yes.
okay? The other thing that I see missing on Do the Whole Thing is similar to what I brought up about HR. Where are we going with this? Okay, because I don't think that we can put together a comprehensive plan, a financial plan, that quickly.
I agree.
Okay, and I would not be in support of saying, you know, $3 million debt exclusion and use something that's 3 years old or 4 years old to figure out what do you do first, and it seems the cart before the horse kind of thing. I understand, I want our roads to be done, I want to see a comprehensive plan, but it's what we talked about before, about looking at capital planning more as a long-range financial plan to be able to take care of our assets like the streets. So I would not be in support of that. I would be in support of an amount to update the plan that we did before, so that we could use that to create a financial plan around it.
The updating of the plan is something that could be accomplished with existing Chapter 90 funds for relatively short money that would not require an article on the town meeting.
Then
So if the board directs that we update the plan with Chapter 90 funds and then come back with a plan based on that plan, that's more long-range, I think that, I would agree that makes better sense than
I mean, I don't think
picking a
that...
three-year-old number now and trying to roll it out.
Yeah,
to
because I don't think that the issue is which roads do we do first. That's going to come from that updated plan. I think that the real issue is how do we as a town get to the point where we can afford this, along with all of the other things that we need to do. And that's what I mean by a financial plan to wrap around it, similar to what Lunenburg did.
Absolutely.
And that's simply going to take a little bit of time. I don't think we have time to do that
The first
this year.
step, the first step of which would be to update the plan.
I agree. So if this article were to update the plan from Chapter 90 funds, I'd be happy with it, or if it doesn't require that at all, that's fine.
Now, when we were talking about the capital plan, we were talking about the 200,000. Is that in here anywhere?
It's
in
part of the
capital
capital, part of the capital plan
Oh, it's part
article.
of, it is part of the capital plan article, okay.
So that's like our contribution to
That's the adding.
It's a little bit more anyway.
Is that in there?
It's actually not in that version.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it will be in the one that you voted tonight.
All right, that's why I couldn't find it, okay. So this is a separate, this is something else.
Yeah,
is
this
the
was
bigger
to
plan.
do, this was to do the whole...
Yeah, my only, I mean,
shebang.
I'm just, my comments aren't going to really go anywhere, but I'm just, like, we did the road payment management plan several years ago, and it didn't go anywhere other than once the plan was presented, then it just died on the vine.
Because we
So I
didn't
just-
have the financial
But I just
plan.
want to make sure that, before we go too far with the pavement management plan, that we know that whether or not we have the financial ability to do it. Even, because I hate to see us keep doing plans.
So you'd want to
And
do
never-
it the opposite way?
Not necessarily the opposite way, but before we just run out and do a pavement management, we already know what it's going to cost.
I actually don't.
Well, we know that our roads are in bad shape.
Right, no, oh, you mean to do the actual...
Oh, no, yeah, to do the implementation. If we're not going to implement it, but we're going to just keep every few years do a pavement management plan that we can't afford to implement.
Right.
I'm not in a mad rush to do another plan. But if we say, gee, maybe, that we can project that maybe we can, with all our other debt exclusions and things that we have going, I hate to see, if we were to enact a payment management plan, it would be debt exclusion, which is going to increase taxes.
Absolutely.
Which, absolutely. And I don't, feel that the town has a big appetite for raising a lot of taxes, although the town does have an appetite for better roads, but we get into that push-pull.
Yep.
But I just want to make sure that we're looking, when we're thinking about just with generalities, can we project that we'll have a stomach for the millions of dollars that it might cost? Just thinking about affordability as we're trying to decide when to
I'm
actually
okay
do a plan. Like, I don't want to see, because we did one plan, we couldn't do it. We do this plan, well, can we do it? No. I don't want to just keep doing plans.
And that's why I keep talking
Because the
about,
roads keep changing.
we need a long-term, how are we going
Right.
to manage this? How do other towns do it? Because they do, okay? Where do they get the revenue from? Because it's not all from raising taxes. Some of it
Most
is...
of it is.
No, I disagree. I mean, Lunenburg had a really...
They did an override.
This was an override.
Yes.
They did a big override.
Partially that, but it was partially...
Huh?
Huge, like $5 million.
$5 million override.
But it was
Override. So that they could keep it going. An override is permanent, so they could keep it going.
A possibility would be, the plan, while it's 3 years old, is fresh enough that an update is not going to be what it costs to have the original plan done. So, for the sake of discussion, update the plan. We then know...
Which we don't even have to decide tonight.
Right, we then know what the number is to do either the whole show or doing it in sections based on priority that somebody professional outside of the town, without a vested interest in whose road gets done, has determined needs to be done. One of the other things that I think would be worthy of consideration is, while we're not guaranteed Chapter 90 funds every year, there's nothing that guarantees we're going to see it. However, if you look back over the last 10 years, you've seen $500,000 a year over the last 10 years. I apologize. Sorry. Is there a possibility of voting to fund the $3 million, thus some number of dollars, the debt service to be paid annually with our Chapter 90? So if you do, a $6 million plan, inside of, 12 years, you've got that paid without raising the taxes. The danger is if
We don't get the money.
if the state bellies up on Chapter 90, then you've got to find it in your budget.
If you could, yeah, I'm for thinking that way. I'm for thinking outside of the box and saying, how have other communities done it? Because other communities do it. And for us to just jump into it right now is not the way to go, because I don't think it needs to be entirely debt exclusion. I really don't, or override or whatever. I think there's other ways to do it. I think it is becoming a priority.
Yep.
And if it hasn't already become a priority, but I don't think financially we have it figured out exactly how are we going to do it.
So for
Madam
now, we're
Chairman?
going to skip Article 9? And, Gordy, do you have?
That's where-
That's where you were going to...
That's where I'm going. Well, I've been listening to you both thoughtful thoughts here, and I think there's different ways of slicing the apple here, and there's merit to all of you. But are we voting to take 9 off because we're
You
not
wanna
ready
take
for
9
it? And to get do it in the fall or something?
I would
Okay.
move to take, to
guess that's
remove
where I'm cutting
Article
the cheese
9.
here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So do you need something from us on that, a motion?
Just heard you.
Okay, thank you.
So then we see Article 10. Article 10 is the raise and appropriate borrow transfer from available funds to fund upgrades in public safety communications infrastructure, 25,180. So what this is the balance of the 175 that we're looking to spend every year, 149 or 150 of which is contained up in the capital plan, and this would be the delta of that number. So this is not for any specific purpose in terms of a widget or a gadget, but it is for the general purpose of public safety communication. Article 11 is the earlier mentioned water department $1 million project. This is the water main from basically the pump station on Main Street all the way to the dead end at the end of Wheeler Road. And Article 12, we move into general financial articles. This would be $5,000 to defray the charges and expenses for planning for the 300th anniversary celebration, which is about 15 years out. But the hope of some members of the community is to begin with small appropriations now to start priming the pump.
Don't we usually set up a committee first?
My understanding is that's how you've done it in the past, but we did get one of the folks that has been one of the more active participants in prior years that's asked that an article be placed. So there's no committee yet, but...
Well, I know, so that's my point. You're going to allocate $5,000, and who's going to...
It's a savings account.
Until you appoint a committee, nobody.
The celebration's in 2032.
I know, so I'm
Do you
saying...
want to, we
why
got
do I
committees
need-
that we can't fill now.
But what are we doing with... Why put $5,000 into something that's just going to sit there? It's like...
Because in
putting
2031, somebody's going to be complaining that there's no money for the celebration.
Okay, so this is a savings account that we're doing?
Yes.
My understanding is it's to put it on the radar of members of the town meeting that there's going to be an expense coming. My understanding is when the 275th was done, it was in excess of $100,000 that the town spent. I know we did a 250th in my last community, and we spent close to 175.
175 what?
$1,000.
So 5,000 is just to get,
Basically, to put it on the radar screen 15 years early. And
buy
then
some
you appoint a
balloons.
committee, and they have $5,000 to start.
What's 5 times 15?
but there's also going to need to be some
75.
fundraising.
That's not going to do it, if that's what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they've just asked for a token just to get it on people's radar screen.
There'll be an account.
Well, to
if
me,
it
a
says-
token is $1,000. That'll get on somebody's radar screen.
We're going
Okay.
to end up putting more than 5,000. 5,000, I'm fine. If we have 5,000, I'm fine with 5,000. It's fine.
I mean, here we're
It's going to go
I mean,
to
we're
the-
talking about, pulling out $5,000 from the HR position and paying for some, I just think that it's, announce it, okay? In 15 years, we're gonna have a celebration. We gotta start thinking about it. I think it's the cart before the horse. I think you do a committee first. But, whatever.
I'd go along with the committee
Look at it in the fall.
100%, as long as the Disability Commission gets filled, the Economic Development Committee gets filled,
Well,
and the elected positions that are on the ballot that nobody signed up for gets filled.
well, maybe there's more people interested in the anniversary celebration than there are those other things.
Do you want to revisit this one in the fall?
No, I don't.
Madam
It's
Chairman,
on the,
I
it's on
can't in
the,
good conscience support $5,000 right now.
yes, how do you feel, Woody?
I think we should just let it go and let the people on town floor decide.
There you go.
Gotcha.
I don't know
I
how
won't
you feel.
support it.
Okay, you don't have to.
No, I'm just saying, I won't support it.
The next then, Article 13, which will be Article 12, because Article 9 disappeared, but is $30,000 request from the Master Plan Committee to have one of our charter required actions be done with professional support of people that do it for a living, so we know that what we're doing is what the people really want. Your master plan is ideally what everything else falls from. It guides for the next 10 or 15 years how you budget, where you put your energies in terms of economic development or open space preservation and everything in between. The fact that we've not had a true update for 17 years. I mean, in '08, there was
There's a draft floating around.
Yeah, there was some work done in '08, but to my understanding, it was never quite finalized. I know you've got a very good committee that's together right now that is representing the town, one member of whom is here now, and I won't recognize Kim Craven because she doesn't like to be recognized, but, sorry, she's sitting right there.
I didn't hear your questions on it.
It's relatively short money for the import of the document.
As is Karen.
I'll support that
I'm
one.
fine.
There's 3 members. There's
Excellent.
3 people. Not just 3.
I wasn't aware. If the 3 would like to identify themselves, I'm getting some. Yeah, Wayne and who else? Hey, Karen. I couldn't see you back there. So you have 3 members of the master plan committee here. So,
I'm good. You
you
good?
got that one?
I'd like to see the master plan done sometime.
With this, it will be. Article 14 is the assessor's request for $4,000 for the periodic inspections and property data verification program. Article 15 is $8,000 for the purpose of, and that number is reduced 1,500 based on,
The 8,000 is now 1,500?
8,000 was a plug number based on what I know to be available at the end of the day, until I had heard back from Lori as to what she got for quotes.
Now we can afford the parade.
I'm not going back there.
Use the shredding for confetti, right?
Don't shred the money.
Shred all the documents.
Next, you'll see Article 16, which is $21,000, and this is an article that has roots back to last annual, where we had received funding from the Commonwealth as a result of a conservation land deal that was done, and the requirement was, per that deal, that the money be set aside and earmarked for conservation purposes. However, there's a conflict with DOR in terms of what they required us to do with it as a receipt. So we took the money in, it closed to free cash, and the ask now is that, because the deal we made with the Commonwealth on their other division was that it be for conservation, that we now appropriate from free cash this 21 into the conservation fund. Article 17 is Cemetery Improvement Fund. The town has for a number of years been appropriating to a cemetery improvement fund, and the Department of Revenue has finally caught on to the fact that that's how it's been being done, and it's instead supposed to be done into a revolving fund. The net, at the end of the day, is no different at all. It's legally, this is the structure it's supposed to be in, but it still affords the Cemetery and Parks Commission the same ability to do everything they're doing today. Next, you would see stabilization article, and that, again, is a usual and customary, that is a placeholder article that if, at the end of the day, there are some funds that are available that folks feel strongly about placing in stabilization, this article will be there for that. My hope is that there will be some funding at the end of those financial articles to do that. When we...
Remember what we did last year?
Last year, we did nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, we put nothing in
That's
last
right,
year.
yeah, we were.
When we had our conference call with our bond rating agency, one of the areas that they focused on was, as a positive, was our percentage of reserves. So our stabilization, our cap stabilization, and some other reserve accounts that we have are strong for a community our size with a budget our size. They look to see what the trend has been. And while we haven't drawn from it in 3.5 years, we've not put in it either. And even a token of $5,000.
I know where you
Well,
find
some from the
that.
parade.
Just picking a number. Some amount of money going into stabilization, just showing the trend is. And again, it's about keeping it in front of people's eyes and on their radar.
And that will be determined at town meeting.
Yep, we'll have a running tally.
Once we have the,
Yep.
once all the
And
articles
is it
go
still
through.
possible that it's still possible that the school
Yes.
may give us a reduction in their assessment.
The last conversation I had with the superintendent about that was it's her expectation that they certified a number where they did, which they recognize is lower than they would like, but higher than the towns should be expected to afford. They certify at that level because they can always come down, but they can't go up once they've certified. They expect that there will be an additional reduction on that. So to that point, we've currently got the 4.94%
Giving us
covered in
a
the
balanced
budget. Keeping us
budget.
balanced, but if that number comes down, that'll leave that delta available and raise and appropriate.
Okay.
Article 19, Board of Water Commissioners submitted an article to authorize the Board of Water Commissioners to hire legal counsel. Then you get to Article 20, which is a vote to amend the general bylaws by adding a chapter entitled Prohibited Parking Bylaw. And this is 4 sections, and the long and the short of it is a prohibition for vehicles driving and parking on the common. I expect that there'll be some discussion about this with members of the Cemetery and Parks Commission, the Parks Commission side of that house, because they statutorily have care, custody, and control of the common.
So wouldn't we put that into the blank spot?
That's why it's blank, because this is being submitted by a member of the Board of Selectmen, but ultimately the care, custody, and control is the Parks Commissioners. So I left it blank so as to not prejudge what should be there.
When would that be determined?
Well, I'd look for guidance from you, and if it's your, well, what I would suggest is that the preferable board would be the Parks Commission, and that you would authorize me to present as much to them at their next meeting between now and town meeting. If they're so inclined, that's how it would be finalized. If they're not so inclined, then it would be Select Board.
Can we authorize you to do that then?
God bless you, do it. Done.
Okay?
She's reading.
So we don't know what the Cemetery and Parks feels about this.
What I know is based on conversations I've had where the Cemetery and Parks Commission have, on a couple of occasions, had a proposal to do this, and they have had their meeting stacked by people that oppose it, and they've then moved away from it and not done it. The opposition comes from people who are involved in holding events on the common that are far easier for them to hold if they're able to drive their vehicle across the common to unload their wares, or to not only drive but then park at their location and work from their vehicle. So that's my understanding. I did speak with the moderator, who also is a member of the Cemetery and Parks Commission, about this, and said that it was something that would be coming, so I think it would be appropriate.
I let John know that I had submitted this as an article, and my point in submitting it is there seems to be a conflict out there in that people want us to put money into spiffing up the common, fixing the sidewalk, fixing the grass, making it look a lot more presentable, which I am totally for. However, I don't want to pay for that kind of maintenance work, upgrading, and then have somebody with their SUVs driving all over it. Okay, so if you want us to okay the money and to support putting money into it, then you got to have some rules around how you're going to allow people to use it. I think there are other ways to move things from outside the common into the common without using big trucks and SUVs to do that. So I certainly wouldn't put a new lawn in and then let somebody drive all over it.
Just the ledge truck?
So I just, that's how I feel, and I feel like it needs to go in front of town meeting and get settled once and for all. If you want us to upgrade the common and make it look nice, then you got to put some rules in place, because you can't have everything, you know?
This is written specifically, the last sentence in the first section: such restriction shall in no event restrict the town of Townsend vehicles on official business. So that's obviously when they're mowing, or if they have to do repair work. Part of the thinking in that line also is if the town of Townsend as a sponsor of an event, has a gator, has, you know, one of those small four-wheel utility vehicles that, you know, you schedule, the vendors are, you know, you're here at, you know, 7:15, and you unload your stuff to the gator, we're going to drive you out to your spot, we're going to help you dump your stuff off,
Right.
and then, you know, you take your car and you go park someplace else, and the next person comes in, and that way there, we're limiting, you know, the impact, but we're not inconveniencing people to the point that they're actually, you know, schlepping, you know, trunks on their backs across the common either.
You can go talk to Parks and see whether they like this or not.
Yep.
Madam Chairman?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Crowler, thank you for the explanation on Section 1, the last word there, that makes sense. I just have some concerns on the first line of Section 2 there, so you can follow it. On the wording, where it says shall cause posting and suitable signs. My question would be, who's responsible for the cost of making those signs? Where's that the funds come for that? Okay, and the other is the word suitable signs, that's sort of arbitrary and capricious. You understand what I'm saying with
I do.
that? So
I
if you
do.
could tighten that up, I would
Sure,
appreciate
and
that.
the expectation with people that I've spoken to would be that the signage would be at the far end of the common where there is space sufficient for vehicles to come in off the parking lot.
Okay.
So you'd have the middle stanchion and then two on the edge, you know, driving.
So what I'm looking for, I don't know what the board wants, is that somehow we know who's responsible for paying the bill, to make it quick here. And the other is that the signs are suitable with the requirements of a historic, whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So I just need a little,
Yep, I get that.
all right?
Yeah, and within the bylaw requirements
Whatever,
for
you know what I'm saying?
signs.
It's just
We're gonna
that
discuss this
it's a
again.
little arbitrary there.
Are we going to discuss this again before? Or is this our last chance?
This is discuss and approve warrant, so we can get it finalized by council and get it posted.
Okay.
I mean, it can be amended once it's on
Yeah,
the floor as well, but
I'm
if
going
there's...
to, go ahead, I'm going to agree with it, but I don't, I mean, to have it on the warrant. I'm not necessarily 100% convinced that this is it for me. I don't know how it will go on town meeting floor, so it might be one of those that I'm not necessarily going to vote for.
Understood.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on what Parks presents. Hopefully, they're going to have something to say on town meeting floor as well as the other people that use it. I know I've participated in many events on the Common, and I've done it both ways. There's been years where we weren't allowed to bring our vehicles on, there's been other years where we were, and you make do, but I know that there are some events that there might be other issues other than the events I participated in. And I just think, I'm just talking, but that it's been a problem for years, for at least the 30-plus years I've lived here, that where this is such a conflict with vendors, nonprofits, and the town, that maybe there's a design thing, something Parks can look at and say, we really need to be able to get, you can't get to the middle. There's things that you just can't get to where they need to be on some of these. Either the setting up for events has to be different, or the setup of the common can be adjusted without changing anything historical. But there might be something else that Parks can look at. That's why I'm more open. I don't know that this is necessarily the way it's going to end up. I'm not sure, but I'm saying yes now to get it on the warrant, but I'm not necessarily
Okay.
in favor of it, that's all. I'm not against it, I'm just not
People need to
in favor.
talk about it.
That's all. I just want to be clear about
There's
this.
there's no way to get to three-quarters of the common without going over what will be newly created concrete sidewalks.
Exactly. So we've got some people complaining, rightfully, that the sidewalks are tipsy and it's dangerous to walk and all of that. Fine, we're going to fix them, but if you drive a truck over it, they're not going to be fixed for very long.
Exactly. I know.
So
But
what
I
is the
think-
purpose of the common? Do you want a place where people can safely walk
And I
and...
think this is a great conversation on the floor.
Right.
At town meeting, and I can just imagine.
It's going to be a fun one.
This
Bring
is
the
one of those
popcorn.
articles where I'm going to predict that it's going
Madam
to be
Chairman.
tough, or it might pass very quickly, who knows?
So if I'm taking the conversations of you two and Mr. Kryler, I'm saying this time we're instructing him to go forward with this, just make sure that the language is clear by the
And work with the
I'm
parks.
going to go to the
And the
parks.
parks
Right.
has-
Go to parks, see if
So
they
we're
have
ready for the next thing,
they have
right?
the interest in being...
I find it interesting listening to you for a half hour
I really
at a
hope,
time.
I mean, I don't want to, I'm certainly not in the mood at all to put up, to say, I'm supporting this article, and Parks is absolutely against it.
Right.
I don't
I
want,
gotcha.
I don't want that, that's not any intent that I want to have.
All right, I'm okay.
Right, so
You know what
I'm going to speak
Right.
with the Parks Commission, and I'm going to add a little bit of protection around the signs, make it consistent with our sign bylaw and historically appropriate.
And cost.
Well, the cost will go to whoever fits
I
in
thought
that
our
blank.
sign bylaw was
That's a-
unconstitutional.
Thank you, that's a great.
Around politics it is.
Oh,
I'm looking
just
for.
politics.
Yeah.
Oh,
I am deadly
Okay,
looking
so-
forward to Article 21
I
at this
thought that
time.
was also,
Are you looking forward to Article 21?
I'm not
Article
looking
21.
forward to
There you
anything.
go, I'm looking forward to that.
Article 21 is coming in by recommendation from the Nashua River Wild and Scenic River Study Committee. See if the town will accept the Nashua, Squanicook, and Nissitissit River Stewardship Plan developed by the Nashua River Wild and Scenic River Study Committee, together with its recommendation to seek Wild and Scenic River designation. We will make this plan available, if you approve this article in the warrant, we'll make this plan available online, and we'll get a copy, make certain there's a copy in the library as well, so people have the ability to see what this stewardship plan actually says.
Do we
Madam
know what
Chair.
conservation thinks about it?
I know that it came with the recommendation from two people on conservation, as well as this outside committee of which our town is a participant member.
Yeah, we voted to go forward with it,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to talk to some people, and I keep forgetting to call.
Madam Chairman, just a point of information for my personal knowledge.
Okay.
Is this what we're talking about, that I went and replaced you for Nikki Saunders for 4 hours, canoed?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
And beat out
part
8
of
other
it,
towns and ring the
yeah,
bell back there? Thank you very much.
And part of the cleanup that you and I both participated
Right,
in,
thank you.
kayaking and canoeing down there.
Thank you.
Article 22 is interesting.
Oh,
Article
outstanding.
22?
I like this one.
Article 22, actually, I have a version on my screen today that I worked on. It's tightening the definition of 3 different types of alarms. It's basically the equipment that the bylaw references that we don't use anymore, and making that consistent and changing the fines. If you take a minute, I can go grab it, or
That's okay.
we can deal with it. I mean, it came in by the fire chief before the deadline.
Just give me, I'm just lost. Just
Yeah,
don't go get it, but
I couldn't do it off the top of my head. It was,
fines for people that,
it's multiple alarms, false alarms.
oh.
So the
Like when
first one,
keep
okay,
having your
it's a mistake, we
like
understand, but
You
it's
have a
going to be more
multi-unit
money each
dwelling and the
time.
alarm keeps going off 2,
Yeah.
3 times a night for 3 weeks.
You have a building where you judge it's cheaper to not repair it and just have the fire department keep coming. Well,
I
we're
see.
going to make it expensive because you're taking our resources when we should be able
Does
to
this
respond
include
to
like
something else.
violations of burning permits, or is that a different thing?
Separate thing,
No,
this is just fire alarms.
Just fire alarm, oh, okay, the big ones, okay.
I'm good.
All right, I'm good.
23. 23 and 24 both come in from Sue. These are ones you remember we've talked about earlier. These are ones that Sue submitted in time for the deadline of the warrant, and then had asked me to get some information from council. I did, and then Sue withdrew them. After we met last Tuesday, Sue and I spoke, and she had said that she had interest in seeing them back on the warrant, with minor modifications that they're not compulsory, which is, I guess, wasn't the original intention, but that's how they had been, they had read. Initially was that the town meeting would vote to compel the select board to do certain things, which the response from council was that can't happen, so they were withdrawn. But now they're just authorizations. So the first one is to have to seek town meeting's approval to authorize the select board to do MOUs with the deputy police chief and the police lieutenant, limited to a term of 1 year, renewable annually by agreement of the parties, and provide for no greater level of benefits than the level of benefits of subordinate employees in the police department, or as otherwise provided by town personnel policies and procedures manual.
So what I was thinking on that one was to be in line with the other MOUs that that the town has authorized the selectmen to enter into. It doesn't mean that they have to, it just means the town authorizes that. Because we have that for like highway superintendent was authorized by the town to enter into an MOU. There were a couple of others, I think.
Building commissioner.
Building commissioner.
Yeah, there's been some discussion about, I mean, you would ask me if I could pull the actual warrant when that was allowed.
Yeah.
It was May of 2001 when the highway superintendent was voted, and it was, interestingly, it was voted to authorize a contract, which
Town
Which is-
council said no to.
Right.
So it became the MOU.
So it was done as an MOU subsequent to that. And I know that there was also an MOU at one point offered to the water commissioner, excuse me, the water superintendent. And I don't know that it was ever executed. It was, I think, as a part of the Section 19 discussion just before I got here, with on-call, part of the on-call pay discussion.
So it's really more to be consistent with the other positions that are not contract positions, basically.
And it could come to pass that a position that you might otherwise be authorizing the select board, the town meeting might otherwise be authorizing the select board to do an MOU with, becomes a union contract position, which would make this moot. But
Right.
this isn't, again, creating an obligation to do an MOU, it's just authorizing you to do one if you would choose to. So I guess there are two questions. One is, because it was on, off, and then after the deadline, put back on, is it the wish of the board that they go on? And if so, are these two things that you support? So I guess that's the...
Madam Chairman?
Yeah, I
The
thought
two-
these
the
were
two
away,
lenses.
but what
Well,
do you-
the reason it went away was because it was a misunderstanding and what my intention was. My intention was not to try to compel the board to do that. And I realized it when Jim and I talked some more. And actually, it was when the highway superintendent job came up.
Right.
That I said, wait a minute, that's all I want. I just want it to be authorized. So it was just a misunderstanding of what my intent was.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Gordon.
I'm referring to 2.7, this document here. You don't have to look for it, I'm just telling you where I'm talking from. That's
Okay.
Go to the second page, and if you go down to the last paragraph, I couldn't agree more with that, and I would not favor having this put on the warrant this time. I would vote to not to put it on.
Okay, what is it?
Right here, you should all have in your packets.
Oh, yeah, this is Sue's original request, and then the response.
So my opinion is,
The response that we got was based on thinking that I was
Compelling.
compelling the board.
I just think it creates a delusion of whatever, so I'm not in favor.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect this to even be on here tonight, and I thought it had disappeared and was
I
gone.
had to tell you the truth.
I mean, so I hadn't had even time to even look at it or review it or figure this out,
If you
to see whether I wanted it or not.
go to page 2 of that, the
Memo.
discussion back and forth, you'll note what was originally submitted was to see if the town will vote to enact a new general bylaw entitled mandatory execution of memorandum of understanding. So that, I mean, that may not have been the intent, it was what the language says, so that's why you got the response you did.
Can you say page 2, excuse me, Madam Chairman, are you talking to the back of this?
No, page,
I'm just trying to...
yeah, flip right there.
All right, so this one's Sue asking you questions, and this is... this one.
Mandatory.
The second full page, but page 3 of the
So I
print.
don't know how you do, but I do not want it on.
Well, I'm not saying that it's mandatory. What I'm saying is that document there was based on the first conversation with town council, and that was not my intent.
Okay.
My intent is what's in here now.
My only problem, the only problem I have at the moment, I haven't had a chance to really look at this and ask
Two
questions.
paragraphs.
Well, I know, but it had 2 paragraphs before, and it got pulled off, and we've had no conversation whatsoever about this, or we've had draft warrants popping around for weeks.
Okay.
And, so I'm not... So is that Gordy no?
It is a no.
Okay, I'm gonna say no also.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's Article 23. Article 24, was similar in that regard, that it was submitted, withdrawn, and then seeking to be resubmitted. This one is simpler in that it's one sentence and is a requirement that public meeting agendas be posted on the town website.
Now, 3 years ago, we had the exact same article on town meeting, on the warrant, and it went nowhere. It got voted down because it doesn't require anybody in particular to do the posting. Nobody's identified.
Well, that's true, and I think it's important to note that when a bylaw is enacted, as Jim said several times just recently, his job is to ensure that the bylaws are administered. So his job is to do that. Okay, so that if this were to
But
pass,
according to
he
this
would...
article.
No, if this were passed as a bylaw and created as a bylaw for Townsend, which other towns do, it would be up to Jim to figure out administratively how would that be accomplished.
My only concern
Is that
about
an impossible task?
No, my only concern about it is there are elected boards and commissions for whom I can exercise no authority. That if they post a meeting and their decision is to post it just on the bulletin board,
Then they're in violation of the bylaw.
Okay.
but then I'm going to get hung on it because I'm
But he can't
responsible.
enforce it.
Because I'm responsible
So
to
it's a
enforce
double
it.
standard.
All right, other towns do this.
They do it, but they identify somebody that's going to do it.
But for us to get involved in the administration,
All right, plus this says, website posting requirement for all public meeting agendas, as follows. There's no as follows. You'd have to, a bylaw requires information about...
All right,
you don't
then
just make
take it
a
off.
bylaw that
Take it
isn't
off.
even a complete
take it
sentence.
off. I don't care, take it off. I think it's necessary.
you know what?
I think it's
All right.
2000...
I absolutely, you know what, I agreed 3 or 4 years ago when you put this on before, and I agree now, and I will never, well...
So give me a solution
Hold on.
instead of a question.
Hold on.
What's the
I'm
solution?
not asking a question, Sue. I'm making a statement. I'm 100% in favor that we should be posting all of our public meetings, agendas on the website as the primary. Period. And then the bulletin board is if we get out there. The primary should be the website, because that's the modern, is it the Attorney General's office that has, under open meeting, yeah, it's under open meeting, that this has been adopted as the recommended, it's not required,
Right.
but they're allowing that this cities and towns can make this requirement, but you have to identify, like right now, I'm not trying to imply that I'm beating up on the town clerk, but where the town clerk is required to post everything on the bulletin board, it would be my belief that the town clerk should be posting on the website. But we don't have that rule. That's not what this says. But if we're going to do something like this, then that needs to be discussed between the departments that would be required to do it. The town clerk needs to be part of this conversation, because it would mean, I don't know, more work maybe, to actually, and to get all the postings sent into her and got put onto the website. And that's done entry and requires staffing issues and stuff. But this doesn't say anything. It probably says less than the article that was posted 3 or 4 years ago.
So I have a
But
question.
even just to make it simpler, this was another one that was taken off and put back. So I'm going to say no.
Can I just, in Sue's
I'm going to
original...
say no anyway, so forget about it.
In Sue's original submittal, I just want to own this. In her original submittal, it said, as follows, or take any other action in relation thereto. There was another sentence that was the as follows. When I added this back last week after we met, I grabbed just the article. So there is, just in fairness, there's a sentence that says, there shall be a requirement in the town of Townsend, in addition to the Mass Open Meeting Law requirements for posting agendas, which shall require all public meeting agendas be posted to the town website. So that is the as follows. It's no different than the earlier sentence. In
But it
fairness, I just
doesn't
wanted to say
identify
that there
who's going to
is...
post it, so, I mean, for 2 reasons I'm against it. One, I'm against it because it's a on again, off again. But I'm in
we just
favor
vote on it,
of us
please?
posting I am totally in favor of doing the posting, and I don't even think it needs an article, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, next.
Then you should do it.
What are we doing with
All
it?
right, Gordy, how do you feel about Article 24?
I feel that I don't have enough knowledge to make a decision, so I'm going to say no.
Okay, thank you. So 24 is off. 25.
Article 25 is the ask to adopt Mass General Law 6023B to allow the treasurer collector to change the cost of municipal lien certificates to $50, and they're currently $25.
You need a little dollar sign in there.
I just wrote one, actually.
Thank
I did a search and replace of dollar signs to make that chart fit in the budget.
Okay,
Madam Chairman,
yes.
if I could just ask Mr. Crowther, is that from our treasurer collector, is that based upon...
The standard in the...
Okay,
yeah,
that's all I
in the
need to
field.
know. Thank you. I'm good.
All right.
Is Sue good?
Oh, I'd say
No-
so
no
if I
objection.
weren't.
Okay,
Okay.
that's all. Thought you might.
Thank you.
Article 26, to see if the town will vote to adopt Mass General Law to allow the planning board to take and hold deposits to secure performance of obligations of an applicant pursuant to license or permit. The citation listed there, 4453G and a half, is actually incorrect. It's going to reappear as, and I've got it in the other room, but I believe it's 4481, but it'll be the correct site. And this basically is something we've been doing apparently for years. When an applicant comes in and there's a project proposed, the planning board has taken funds for consulting and to protect the town's interests, but we've never adopted the statute that allows us to do that. So this is basically just kind of catching up with what we've already been doing.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Just for my edification here from Mr. Crowther, when it says hold deposits, what does that mean they'll actually be held? Who's in charge of that?
They actually go into a separate account.
Managed
through-
by our town
through-
accountant?
Through the treasurer's office, managed by the treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
All right, then we get into the real property articles, and Article 27 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to issue a request for proposal, RFP, for sale, disposition of the Squanicook Hook and Ladder Center Fire Station and the Harbor Fire Station for adaptive reuse, with a premium to be placed on proposals for uses related to fire service, historic, public, and/or educational uses, or take any action in relation thereto.
Who's this submitted by?
This actually came in probably 3 years ago from a citizen who had an interest in it, and it's been being carried in the file since. And this year, now that we're fully out of the Squanicook station, we've got the antennas down finally. I don't know if people have noticed that hodgepodge of antennas that used to come out of the belfry over there is now gone. And even more recently, the harbor station, we've got a lease that has been going for some number of years with Mass Forestry, and the Historic Commission's been concerned that they've not lived up to the obligations under the lease, so there's an interest in doing something different with the property before it falls into further disrepair.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why limit the uses?
It's not limiting, just that there would be a premium placed on those.
Okay.
So if you get two equal proposals, and one is to put in, Bath and Body Works, and the other is to, have a fire museum, premium would go to the fire museum.
So reading between the lines, Madam Chairman.
I'm just thinking more from the standpoint of encouraging businesses, and encouraging businesses to grow in the town is a good thing. And there may be businesses that want to use it for business use.
And that's allowed.
Yeah, but
Ultimately, it's your decision on how the RFP would be drafted. You could strike, in this warrant article, you could strike that premium language, and then ultimately, whatever the decision of the board is for, whether there's any premium placed on historic, fire, or educational uses or not, and the RFP is something you can decide. One of the concerns I've heard about the old Squanicook station is parking. From a business perspective, if somebody's going to be investing what would need to be invested in the building to conduct business there, there's already a parking issue in the area, and that lot doesn't afford parking, really, when you think about it. You've got the front apron, and you'd have people backing out onto
You know, you could
On
get a
Elm
nice
Street.
little bistro in there with valet parking,
You could.
right?
They'd park,
Could build
On the
Disneyland too downtown.
Huh?
they'd park on the common.
If, Madam Chairman,
Park on the common.
okay, just say something.
Yeah. We've got
So,
plenty of municipal parking.
if I'm, this is 3 years old, but if I'm reading between the lines here, I'm taking a guess that someone wants to take that historic-looking building and somehow maintain the long history of dedication and volunteer, which is probably 9% of the fire department, and dedicate some kind of museum there too. And I won't be part of the ARP, but the only thing I would suggest to those who were is that it maintains the historic flavor of the
I know
downtown.
Air,
Right.
did they get that taken care of? Is that in process now? I know they...
I've read the RFP, I've read the responses that came in. I don't know if they've executed yet.
Okay, I know that they've been really working on that for the last few years.
So
I think that they'd be a good...
Yeah, so I have no
What to
problem
look
with it. The only thing I would, for the record, for what it's worth, to future boards, is that we recognize the tremendous service that we couldn't protect this town without the volunteers, and if that's the goal, and that we maintain the historic flavor of that area. But that's
I know
all
it
my...
is.
And I'm more interested in income to the town, tell you
Right,
the
so...
truth.
But, I mean, I've been
Than
to...
having an empty building sitting there.
Yeah, I don't want another empty building, but I have been in travels, you know, going around, just going on vacation or wherever, and coming to a town that has an old fire station with, I mean, I just keep thinking firehouse cafes or bistros, and those are, and they usually they keep it, the firehouse look, and some of the memorabilia stays in there and they maintain it.
I've seen general stores.
Sometimes it's firefighters that are running the business even, but those kind of, but there is a way to really have both, have a business and maintain those things, and I think that the only way we can move, I'm really glad this is on here, the only way we can move forward, it will remain an empty building if we don't put an article on.
Right, if you don't get authorization from town meeting
It sits.
to dispose of real property.
Yep.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I might have a suggestion here. This would be for the future boards up on I'm asking Mr. Kryler. If you approve this to request proposal for RFP, would it be up to the Board of Selectmen at that time to set the conditions, whether
Yeah.
there's a premium or not?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I
You
think
can take it out of this
This
warrant
was
article.
Take it off.
You can take it out of the
But
warrant
not saying no, just saying that...
Exactly.
So
That you
I
have
would,
discretion.
to you two, say, put it forward, but the RFP will be up to the future
Yeah,
boards.
I'm in favor of
How's that
this, to
sound?
put it with the...
And I won't be, but my personal thing is, if, I don't know this,
Movement.
if, I understand about business and all that, it's just that I have a real respect for people. Some people over there have been 100 years, their families on that thing, whatever, okay, so that's up to you, so move it forward, but the RFP will be by the Board of Selectmen. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it would be, yeah.
So the article
It would
would,
be anyway, yeah.
the article then would not include with a premium to be placed on proposals for uses related to fire.
That is what I
service.
would suggest.
That could be added
Right,
to
doesn't
the RFP by
preclude
the
them
board.
doing that, right.
It's still open to be done by the board, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah, why don't we take that off? Yeah.
The only additional comment that's worth getting on record is the harbor station, as I understand it, has a deed restriction when that,
Chairman, can we have a little order in the chambers, please?
All right.
when it was conveyed to the town, that if it ceases to be used for fire safety purposes, it reverts back to the heirs. So that might be one, when the RFP is being drafted, to make certain our eyes are open going in, because we
So
don't
you
wanna
draft
do that.
accordingly.
Yeah, okay.
Put it on with those things, right?
Gotcha.
I bet you 27's will be a clock, I'm looking forward to it.
It might not be.
Oh.
Sometimes it's surprising.
28, see if the town will authorize the tax collector to hold a tax title auction on tax title properties held by the town. There are several parcels that we own tax title to that weren't purchased up in the auction. They may be land of low value parcels, a piece,
Okay, can we keep it quiet out there? Thank you.
a piece of land that is adjacent to somebody's.
Just trying to understand because you won't let us ask questions.
Okay, well, I'm going to expect, we can't conduct our business if it's not quiet in the audience. Thank you.
So if there's a parcel that's adjacent to somebody's yard, their backyard, that is sitting in tax title, we're not getting taxes for, and somebody can benefit by this, would allow them to bid on it, so it'd be an open auction.
Okay.
Article 29 is the last article, and this is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Conservation Commission to accept, it currently reads a 9.35 acre plus or minus parcel. I was advised today that that is going to be redrawn at the meeting of April 24th, 5th, the week before town meeting, because it was determined that the way this plan has been drawn, 1+ acres of the land that is being proposed to be donated to the Conservation Commission is already owned by the town. So they got to redo the plan, redraw the property boundaries, so it'll come in probably closer to 8-point-something acres when the day is done, but it'll be the same in its intent. And that's it.
We survived that.
So if it's the pleasure of the board, a motion to approve the warrant as discussed.
Move that the board approve the warrant as discussed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Was that an aye? Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. All right, so that was unanimous. Okay, 2.8, recognize the North Middlesex Band for receiving a gold medal at the Central District MAJE Festival on Monday, March 11th. Jim?
Yeah, this it's just an incredible bit of news with the kids in the band. Bless you. The band all throughout the fall season, the marching band does outstanding work. Bless you, Hartley. I've actually come to know it just because my kids have gotten involved in marching band, so I get to travel and see the shows. But Middlesex has always done an outstanding job. This is not marching band, obviously. It's winter, but they pulled a gold medal this past season, and the work that goes in, it's incredible, the amount of hours that the kids spend perfecting this craft, and I think it's only appropriate that they get the public recognition here that they will be getting, or probably have already gotten in the school. We generally don't drag a lot of those good bits and pieces of information from the school over to this table. I think running parallel with that is just this past weekend, the Winter Color Guard from North Middlesex in its division also was named a champion for the NESBA evaluation for the 2018 season. The program that the Color Guard puts on is incredible. I've seen it described as, imagine ballet and dance and jiu-jitsu with swords, rifles, and spears. And when you watch their shows, it's all of that. And the kids from Middlesex had an incredible show all year. They were always placing at each competition throughout the year, and they got themselves to the point where they took the first place and were awarded the championship this past Saturday. So kudos to them as well.
I think there was one other piece too, and I was looking for the information. I didn't find it.
2.8 here.
But I believe that the choir was invited. Wayne, what was it?
Both the concert band, the wind ensemble, and the brass band, as well as the 3 choirs from North Middlesex, competed in MICA, which is a peer-reviewed competition that they go to every year. Both middle school and the high school do it, and they always place silver or gold. And the girls' treble choir, women's treble choir, got gold, and they'll be performing at the Mechanics Hall in Worcester this Sunday morning. And the wind ensemble also took gold. And the 4 other bands took silver, or 4 other groups took silver. So
And they're going to be performing in Worcester Sunday? The choir?
Choir's in Worcester, the band is in Symphony Hall.
Symphony Hall.
Yes.
Excellent. Wonderful. Can we send a letter of congratulations from the board, please? I mean, they've just got an outstanding program.
Madam Chairman, on thoughts of Sue, can we just issue them a proclamation and make next Tuesday the band day official day? How's that?
I would love to do that.
All right, so if it's all right with the board, we'll empower James Crowther to take the appropriate measures with that.
Write up a proclamation, work with...
Make next Tuesday the 10th Band-Aid for everybody, right?
For the band and choir, in recognition.
Maybe do color guard as well.
Yeah, whatever we
Use your
have.
judgment, right?
And,
All of these.
and even was it the middle school too?
Middle schools, they took all silver, but they generally take silver away.
I mean, I just, you know, I
So,
I
Mr.
think
Kryler, if you could just
school deserves it.
use his judgment,
Mr.
right?
Kryler can
Thank you.
review all of the possible things that the school's been
I
up to.
recognize the outstanding efforts.
So we can make sure we don't miss anybody.
And we can sign that at next Tuesday's meeting. How's that?
Yeah,
Great.
okay, we've gotten to
Job, guys.
the main course. Section 3, work sessions, votes may be taken. 3.1, town administrator updates and reports.
I'm not finding my agenda.
I don't have mine either, I'll tell you the truth.
I've got it right here.
It's on the back.
All right, set the date for the fiscal 19 budget hearing. This would be with the joint meeting with the Finance Committee. We had talked earlier about next Tuesday, the 10th. Did we get confirmation that that works for folks?
That works for me.
It works 6 o'clock?
Yep.
All right, so let me just get my book out here, all right? So next 6 o'clock next week, you're doing
Yep.
what now?
This will be the joint meeting, public hearing on the budget.
Okay, and how long do you expect that to take?
As long as people have
All right.
interest in talking
So
about it, I guess.
the only thing is that, only because we're talking scheduling now, I think we're going to try to have an executive session for Friday
We
night.
do have the need to have an executive session as soon as possible, so
Friday night.
it can either be Friday or it can be Tuesday.
Do I do it Tuesday?
Well, we're gonna-
I mean, I was not happy earlier, but I can...
Well, here's the deal is, to get the fair, we don't, Jim just said, he doesn't know how long it's going to take. So there's serious issues about the budget, for people to have the chance, and there's serious issues about the other things. I think, as we talked earlier on our vice council, I think we need to meet Friday night at 6 o'clock, or after.
Can we just meet Tuesday after this, after the budget hearing?
I don't know if, I don't know if we're going to be here till midnight with that, or not.
Yeah, because of the things that we want.
Yep,
I
and
want-
council made it, that it needs to be addressed urgently, so.
Well, the Finance Committee, think about the budget hearing, okay? The Finance Committee's been working on it all
I'm not disagreeing
along.
with that.
So
So I'm all
please,
set for Tuesday to do that, but Friday night, we need to address those other issues. ASAP.
Yeah,
in addition,
No, separate, Friday nights is just executive
We
session.
were talking
Yeah,
about
I
having
know.
executive, but I wanted to have a discussion about all of the...
Yes.
why do we have to do it this week? Why can't we do
Because-
it Tuesday?
Because they're all pending.
Because
Well, there's quite a few pending that will require us to be here.
May-
We have a night
Madam
that's
Chairman,
dedicated
could I
just
caution
for
the board here?
Yes, that's why-
Those things were brought in executive sessions.
I know.
There's a need, we need to have it Friday night. That's, we shouldn't be saying anything else. Friday night at 6, I'd be open to.
because of the extent of...
Can we do it earlier on Friday?
The earliest I'm available is 6. 5:30 maybe.
Well,
if I'm
it might be just the two of you. I'm sorry. Friday's not convenient for me.
So you want to, I mean,
If we're going to be here Tuesday anyway at 6
yeah, but it could be
o'clock,
very late.
I can't picture the budget hearing going much beyond an hour,
Well,
hour
on top
and
of
a
that,
half.
anything else that comes up between now and then on the agenda.
Well, you're the chair, you don't have to put anything else on.
Well, there are times that you can't, things can't be put off.
I think it's our
What you
obligation.
like, but I may not be here
All
Friday.
right, let's do it Tuesday. Does that work?
No, it doesn't, but I guess if you don't
We're gonna
think
be,
you...
we can, well, I don't want to,
If you want to go against the
as much
vice
as I'd like to
council
do it Friday,
because of
I've got a
personal
member,
reasons, then that's
but
fine.
I've got a member of the board that doesn't
All
want to
right,
do Friday.
well,
and
I
I don't
think,
want to,
I think your oath and the recommendations of council should be followed, not your personal choices.
well, Jesus,
You can have the meeting, you're a quorum.
I'm not going to do that. Let's do Tuesday. Do you think, will that work for the issues that, yeah.
Well, I would like then to have the executive sessions first, then.
That's not fair to
No,
the finance.
It's not fair to us to put it off
That's not
till-
fair to the finance
Finance
committee.
Committee on occasion is met at 7. If the board has the ability to do 5 o'clock for the executive sessions, that would give you 2 hours on executives before the need to open a public hearing. That would also be more convenient if we're having council come out instead of having council waiting until the end of the meeting. So you could do 5 to
Can
7.
you do 5?
5 to 7 executive and 7 on for public hearing.
I'll compromise to that.
So,
Yep.
okay,
So I'm writing down now, 5 o'clock
we
executive.
got it.
5 to 7 and then 7 on.
Thank you both for that, for addressing the needs.
Thank you. And next is something that was covered at the last meeting, but we were not televised, so the request was to have it put back on for this evening. And Cindy, I think you have that.
So I read it last time, but, so you want me to read it again this time? Is that what we decided?
I think that was what we decided last week, yeah.
Okay. We have Jim Kreidler's Town Administrator Performance Evaluation. It's called a 2018 Composite Performance Evaluation. And what this has is our individual evaluations scored and averaged, and it's reported as one evaluation. And out of a rating scale of up to 5 being outstanding, his rating is 4.33. Comments made were, the score exceeds expectations 100% of the time, and outstanding 33% of the time. And that's the average between the three of us. These are statements that were added by each of us without identifying whose, the comments that were added to the evaluation. Jim knows more about local and state government than anyone I've ever known in my 40 years in this profession. Whether it is the big picture issues like labor law and finance, or even the minor and obscure things like land use and zoning intricacies, he's always on top of things. What I have found just as important as the knowledge that he possesses is on the rare occasion that he doesn't have an answer at his fingertips, he readily says so and commits to get it. I've had the privilege of working with Jim for over 2 of my 3 years on the Board of Selectmen, and I can honestly say that without his skills, efforts, strength, and knowledge, I am certain our town would be in a horrible place right now. Whether it is the professionalism and strength he's brought to our financial house, or the courage and intellect he has demonstrated in some very difficult personnel matters, I cannot imagine having come through it if not for him. The citizens of Townsend have been exceptionally well served by Jim, and I have faith that if he is allowed to continue without interference, that we will all look back at Jim's tenure here as the time that Townsend truly turned the corner and reestablished itself as the incredible community it once was. Second paragraph. I have found Jim to be very knowledgeable and easy to talk to. I feel it would have been easier to give specifics and certainly more meaningful to evaluate Jim had the board given him a list of specific goals and objectives to measure his performance against. I look forward to the upcoming year to encourage the setting of specific goals, objectives, and priorities with the hope of becoming more proactive, goal-oriented, and to spend less time and attention focused on crisis management. Jim has been open to different points of view and has been able to gain consensus with multiple stakeholders. He demonstrates confidence in his decision-making. He demonstrates a high degree of knowledge of his job responsibilities and is constantly seeking opportunities to improve our town government.
That's all I have.
Okay. Board of Selectmen announcements, updates, and reports.
I have one, and it's a sad announcement. Today we heard that a member of our planning board, a member of our community, had passed. Kathy Araujo passed today. Our condolences to her family, and she's a neat lady. She fought a courageous fight for several years, and she succumbed today. So our condolences to her friends and family. So, okay.
Thank you. Just 2 things, Madam Chairman. If we could next week, the second evaluation, I have to agree with the reading here about it would have been more meaningful to evaluate Jim had the board given him a list of specific goals and objectives. I would like to put on the agenda for next Tuesday, if you wouldn't mind, Madam Chairman, Sue, to talk about goals and objectives, and just to, if that's all right with you, for him.
I knew you'd add something to the agenda.
I know that. Well, you only have to put up one more time, I think, so.
I would like to see that postponed until after the election. It doesn't make sense for this board, the current board, to to set goals and objectives when a new board may have different priorities. I mean, it goes along with
I
the
agree.
reorganization of a board.
I agree, and I agree with both of you. Because my thought when Gordy said that was not to set them next Tuesday and complete them and have the discussion, because I think that requires some development.
Right.
I know that I have talked to Jim, and I was hoping, and I think it was a miscommunication, that what I like to see, which is at certain levels of leadership, that the senior managers develop what they give some of their own goals and objectives. What do they see as their plan of action for either just the next year, or what do they see as important? So I want to get that feedback, and it's a conversation that needs to be had, not something that we can just say, well, let's meet next Tuesday, and we're going to set the goals and objectives in 45 minutes. And I don't see that, but I think the conversation can get started with this board. I don't want to vote on it. I don't want to complete that conversation. I agree with you on the final, but the conversation.
There's another piece to it, and that is, I believe his goals should follow whatever the goals and objectives of the board are. We can't just do, these are Jim's goals if
No.
as a board, the board has not figured out what is our direction, what are our priorities for the next year, and then his come off of that. And he probably would give lots of input. Okay, if this is your goal as a board, then I would suggest that this is the direction that I go
Why don't we
in.
put it on the agenda for next week so we can have this conversation on what goals and objectives are,
So, if I
rather
may
than
speak.
spend half of
Yes,
tonight
yes.
trying.
So, I see the point.
When it wasn't on our agenda for tonight, we just read
It's
this
just not
off.
requesting for scheduling for next week.
Let's put that conversation
So-
on the agenda for next Tuesday.
Right, and I agree with both of your thoughts on this here. It's just that, and if I could, I'm going to be, for the agenda, so Mr. Crowley has a head up, would be asking for some kind of goal about inventory control, all right? And I'll address that next week. Thank you.
Okay.
And so,
Anything else?
I just wanted to, everything else, I think, is going to be put off till the 10th after our conversations earlier today. But I just want to recognize...
Excuse me, I'd like to, Lisa Milan, are you recording this too?
I just was recording this portion.
Okay, according to the open meeting law, in order for anyone to record a meeting, which I've announced at every meeting lately, you have to ask the chair's permission prior to.
Okay.
It's always granted, it's automatically granted, but you have to notify the chair that you're going to be recording the meeting, so.
I'm going to be recording.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else recording? Okay, thank you.
Just one quick thing. Sorry for the interruption there. I just want to recognize the John Whittemore folks there who are working for the town cookout that was a total success last year. Thanks to John Whittemore. And on August 25th, 2018, there will be a Memorial Town picnic. And they had a variety show last Sunday, which I attended, and was well attended. The place was full. And I have to tell you, there was kindness and civility towards everybody in there, and some of the poor kids up there, they were up there to help this benefit, and I felt bad for them. They had stage fright, but I thought they did a fantastic job.
Good.
And it was something nice, not the negative stuff that unfortunately has been filling us lately. So congratulations to everyone that filled the hall there with some love and kindness last week. And hopefully we'll see everybody in the town August 25th, 2018 for a nice day of friendship and like old days in Townsend. So save a date, August 25th, folks. Thank you. That's all, Madam Chairman.
And I don't have anything to add.
Do you have an approval of the minutes?
We do. Do we have minutes?
But I have not had a chance to really go through them. I didn't realize that was
Soon,
here.
Madam Chair, can we put those off? Because we're doing
Yeah,
like 10 on Tuesday,
Can we
right? Does that make
include
sense to you?
Yes, please.
So we have 10 to do. Why don't we just make it
That's
11?
executive session.
Yeah.
Still, we have to do them all,
Yeah,
right? So
that's fine.
I'd
thank
be
you.
fine with that if you two are.
Yeah, so that we do our homework between now and then, and
Yeah, but it makes sense to
Check
do
them
them all at once.
Yeah.
That's why I-
Well, there's a couple changes, too. Do you want those changes?
Just let me know offline, I have to make the changes, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
all right, and review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants.
I move that the board review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And
I move that the board adjourn at 8:29 PM.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
It wasn't actually